Hey guys, my name is Rory. I'm with Nucraft Metal Products. We manufacture the Craftlander boat lifts. What we have today, we're going to do an assembly video on the manual 45-120. That's 4,500 pound capacity, 120 inch beam width. That's the size of the hole you have to fit your boat into the lift. This is what the hoist package is going to look like when you take delivery on it. Right here, what we have is the crank wheel, 48-inch crank wheel. You can also upgrade this lift with a direct drive power motor for AC or DC. Coming over here, backing up a little bit, we have the hardware box. The box looks like this. We have the winch box right here. Looks like so. Starting at the back over here. Again, this is what all you're going to be getting. Right here we have the spreaders. These are the side-to-side frame members to the base of the hoist. You have the two I-beams, a front one and a rear one for the carriage of the boat lift. Side-to-side members. These are the front-to-back members, the cradle tubes of the boat lift for the carriage. And lastly, we have the package right here. This is all banded together with metal banding. It's got your columns, the front-to-back members of the frame, the diagonal braces, and the legs, the foot pads, etc. All right guys, starting off, the very first step that you're going to want to do, the hardware box looks something like this right here. What I have on this table is everything that's inside of this box. Starting off here, what we have is we have the owner's manual that will be inside of that box. We're going to have 4 of these foot pad brackets. They look like so. We're going to have 2 column clamps right here. They look like so. You're going to have 4 of the guide plates. These go on each 4 corners of the carriage. And then right here I have these striped. This is going to be the frame bag. This is going to be the carriage bag. When you're building a boat lift, you're always going to work out of the frame bag first. You have to have a frame in order to put the carriage on something. We'll cover what's included in all these later on in the video. In the carriage bag, you also have a bag of plastic caps to put on. In case I don't tell you later, a rubber mallet is best for that when you're installing those. It keeps them from being brittle and cracking. Right here, these are your fish plates for your diagonal braces. You're going to use those later. And winch box and wheel. The winch box and wheel are separate, not included in the box. And then the step we're going to roll into right out of the gate is going to be putting one of the foot pad leg tubes together and put it into a column. So what I have here, set up here is I have the winch column set up. Doesn't matter what column you do first. You're going to grab one of these foot pads. These foot pads are included in the package that was banded together. You're going to grab one of these foot pad brackets. And you're going to have your pin and counter key. Set those at the base. So first of all, what we're going to do here, you're going to grab 2 of the 3/8 by 3/4 carriage bolts. Look like so. These are going to go up from the bottom of the foot pad. The holes will line up here. Put one of your brass whiz nuts on there. Repeat that step again for the other side of the bracket. Like so. Next, you're going to go grab one of your leg tubes. The leg tubes that come standard in our manual 45-120 is a 54-inch. These are all your adjustment holes right here. This is your hole for mounting it to the foot pad bracket. I'm going to hold this up like so. Put your 3/8 bolt through there. Apply the nut to the other side. Then what you're going to do is insert it into the column. What you're going to want to do here, this hole right here at the bottom of every column is where your pin's going to go for leg adjustment. Make sure your holes are going the same direction. Stick it in the column like so. I usually like to leave for the build only about 3 holes exposed. That way you can get your tools or impact driver underneath here to tighten up the framework later on. Got your pin, adjustment pin, and your cotter key. Now, one thing I want to point out here. This pin right here, you always want to go from the outside of the lift in. And you can determine that by, we call this the T bracket right here. This one, it's in the shape of a T. And this one right here, we call that the L bracket. okay? It's in the shape of an L. This right here kind of creates a corner if you look at that. That'd be the inside of the lift. If you put the pin in that way, later on in the build, if you had to do a leg adjustment, you know, say the water went down, you had to lower your feet. You can't get this pin out because of a component that's not, and it's going to be in your way here. So you always want to go from the outside in. Take your pin, counter key, like so. After this, you're going to repeat this step 4 times. All right, guys, the next step. So what we did here, just to recap, we put together the other remaining 3 columns with the foot pads in them. So we've got these laid out on the ground here. So what you're looking at here is the off-dock size, you could call it. So you got the columns going up and down. Remember what I spoke about the L and T clamps on here. The T's are going to face side to side. The L's are going to face front to back. Okay? So we're going to focus on this area right here. We're going to put these together. First, what we're going to do, we're going to grab one of the front to back members, the lower side panel. This is what that tube looks like right here. Now, the way to tell this apart from the spreaders is going to be by these 2 holes here. Okay? These are drilled about middle of the tube, and they're going to be going towards the top side. So you want to make sure you point those up. There is a purpose for those, and that would be for the diagonal braces when we get to that stage. So what you can do first, take this tube, stick it right on your L clamp, like so. Then you can bring the other one over here. Put it together like that. In your bolt bag, you're going to find these longer 3/8 bolts. I usually like to just put them loosely in here. No need for a nut at this time. What that does, it just kind of holds things together while you're doing this part of the build. Just put one in each end of the tube. That's going to hold that from falling apart. Next step. You're going to grab the 2 column clamps. They look like this. That's what we spoke about when we were talking about the hardware box. There'll be one on the top there, one on the top here. Take these puppies, put them on the top of the column, slide them down until they stop. Same thing over here. Put it on until it stops. Next, you're going to find, this is the upper cradle tube, okay? This is where your cables anchor. You can see the 5/8 holes in each end. There's 2 of them in each end, and there's 2 3/8 holes on each end of here. So this you really can't screw up. It's the only 2x4 tube. It's going to go right inside of those column clamps. And you're going to grab 4 of the 3/8 bolts included. You're going to go from the inside out. So when we stand this up, this top part that's showing is going to be the inside of the boat lift. So you're going to drop them through from the top. On this side, you can loosely put the nuts on the bottom of them as you do it. Repeat the same step at the other side. Once that's part of it's done, that's pretty much how this, call it a whole side panel, that's how it assembles. Next, you're going to grab one of the spreader tubes. There's going to be 2 alike, there's no holes on this side. The top, you're going to find 3 on each end. Then you're going to slide it onto the Z-clamp, like so. On these 2 tubes, there is no top and bottom, so you don't have to worry about that. Once you have this part of it done, what you can do next, you can grab right here, pick up this side panel, Baby down nice and easy. Till the spreaders hit the ground. From there, does not matter what column you do next. Pick one of the two. Stand it up like so. Lift up your tube. Slide it in. Now I like to put long 3/8 bolts in there just to help hold it together. Same thing on this side. Again, another bolt there. And then lastly, on the opposing side of the spreader, just get a bolt in there to help hold it together so nothing comes apart. Lastly, for this part of the build, grab your other remaining lower side band. Again, these two holes, pay close attention to, they need to point up towards the sky. Slide one end down. Slide the other end down. At this point in the build, you can grab the rest of your 3/8 by 6 bolts, drop them all loosely with no nuts. Once that part is done, next, you have the two diagonal braces. Look like so. You're going to see a miter on one end and not on the other. What I like to do personally first is put the fish plates on that we talked about in the box contents. Grab 4 or 3/8 bolts. And then need these plates right here. Again, when building the bolt lift, all the bolts should go from the inside out. And at this point in the build, I have not tightened any nuts down yet. You don't want to do that until we get the X dimension figured out, which we'll talk about shortly. Once you have that part done, this is what you see. You're going to now take the diagonal brace, slide it on, stick it into the piece of tube at the top. Now, at the top there, you will find in your bolt hardware bag 2 1/2-inch bolts with nylon lock nuts. This is what's going to hold it in at the top. That's 1. This is 2. top down or bottom up. Next, I'm going to grab your last two bolts here. Stick it through that hole that I pointed out in the lower side panel that's on the top. Same thing on the bottom here. And I'm going to flip these two around. You can see I did not open the inside out on that like I was supposed to. I did that on purpose just to show you what it's like. Alright, once that part is done, in the package what you're going to find are steel corner plates. They are packaged with the foot pads. They look like this. One of these is going to go on each corner. Now the bolts that hold those on, we have already inserted earlier on in the video. All you're going to do now is grab the nuts for those. 16 of them. Now, when you're putting these corner plates on, you're going to see the whole pattern's tight here, it's bigger here. You can only put these on one way, they won't go down the other way. You want to make sure you install these on the bottom. Hold it up there. Once you get one of these bolts with a nut on it, it'll hold that plate for you. I know it's hard to hold it by yourself. Once you get one on, it'll hold it to where it needs to be. Then you can do the remaining 4. You're going to repeat this step 3 more times at all corners. Alright guys, so what I've done here is I've gotten all the hardware tightened, axle braces on, everything's tightened up. One thing I want to point out, when you're building the frame of the lift, it's very, very important, your X dimensions. And what I mean by that is going to be this dimension, kitty corner from each other, and this dimension, kitty corner from each other. That's going to get everything squared up for you, okay? Now, that being said, I'm not going to tell you those measurements because those could vary depending on what you measure from. So it's imperative that you measure at the same point at each corner, the same there as you do here. That way you make sure you get a true dimension. You should be able to get it right on the money, okay? If you're off by an 1/8 inch, even a 1/2 inch, it's not going to be a deal breaker, no big deal. Just do the best you can with it, get as close as possible. That's going to lead us on to the carriage. What you're going to find on the carriage components here, mainly the I-beams. What we can do here, you're going to find these steel guards in the center here, these black plastic pads. They're going to say front or back on it, okay? The back ones, first of all, we classify the back of the hoist, the non-winch box in. The winch box is the front of the hoist. Although you can load your boat either direction, just for assembly purposes, we have a front and a back, okay? So, on the I-beams, what you're going to find, there's going to be 6 holes on each end milled in the top. And on the bottom flange, you're going to find, there's only 1 hole on this side, but there's going to be 3 on this side here, on the bottom. Okay? That makes sense? All 3 of them there. These holes, these 3 on the bottom, have to point towards each other, okay? You don't want to have to end up flipping these around later on. Okay, so this is the back one. What we're going to do is we're going to start with this. So you grab your rear I-beam, like so, bring it over to the left. Set it on there like that. One part of the step when the build, when you get to this point, you can figure out anything you have around the house, even your bunks for the boat lift, 2x4s, 4x4s, anything like that. So you're going to want to give yourself a tray to work on. That way you can reach the bottom bolts of these I-beams and the top ones, and it's not down inside of that framework of the hoist. Because our carriage drops completely inside of the framework, getting you the most water that you can possibly get for the boat. So what I'm going to do is grab a 4x4, pull one in each corner. All you got to do is just set it on a diagonal like that. Also, on a side note, try not super tight to the corners with these, as it may prevent you from getting your hands in there. All right, once you have that done, you can take your rear I-beam, pick it up, and you can set it about where it's going to go. Now on each end of the I-beam you're going to find two cables coming out of it. One's going to go up, the longer thread, that's going to be going up. The shorter thread like this, that's going to be going down. Pull that out of the I-beam. Now what you can actually do is you can take this and put it through the hole in the steel plate right now. One thing I want to call out here, you're going to notice on these steel corner plates down here, you have two holes in there. You're going to want to put it under the closest hole there is for the I-beam, which that's going to be the closest one to the column, okay? So all you do, take your cable, stick it down in there like so. That way you don't have to worry about that later on in the build. You're going to do the same thing on the other side. Take the cable out of there, pull it through, put your I-beam, and then center the I-beam on the hoist itself. When you have something that looks like that, you're ready to do the front I-beam. Now, on your front I-beam, you're going to find again the three holes on this lower flange on one side but not the other. You need to make sure that points towards the back of the lift. You're going to grab the I-beam, set it in the same place in the front of the lift. Now, this I-beam is going to have the winch cable in it. It's going to have a long stud coming out of one end going up. It's going to have the cable that goes to the winch box. You're going to need to pull this out of the beam, like that. You can set it on the ground for now. Next step, the front to back cradle tubes. Again, you're going to find a long stud on one end, a short stud on the other end. The short studs you can pull out of the top plates, so this is coming out of the bottom of the tube. It'll make sense when you look at it. Grab the first one. The cables that go up with the long stud, those are going to be at the front, the back of the lift. Put it into place. You will find a slit in this top aluminum plate that the cable does come through. Just kind of get it lined up by eyeball for now, line up for goal holes. Grab the second one. Set one end down there first. Bring the other end down. Pull your winch cable through that slot I was talking about. Pull your rear cable through that slot I was talking about there. Next thing, at this front corner, you're going to find the cable that's going down with the short stud. Out of those two holes I was talking about on the steel corner plate, we're going to go with the one furthest away from the column. Okay? If you use your common sense on this, it should line up straight down from the tube or beam that it's coming out of, if you're in question on it. You want to do that on both sides. Once you have that part done, what you can do is grab 4 of the 5/8 brass nylons. You're going to find that in the carriage bag. You're going to put these on all the cables that came out of the bottom of the lift. No washers on these cables, only on the base. Now all your lower cables, as you're putting the nuts on them, when you go to tighten them down, you're going to want to tighten the base ones all the way. Use up all of those threads. All your adjustment for the carriage is going to be in the top cable. All right. once you have that part done, what we can do is we can start putting bolts in the carriage. On the 4500, you're going to find some 3/8 bolts with a shoulder and 3/8 bolts without a shoulder. Personally, I like to start with 4 of them without a shoulder. This is what they look like right here. And you're going to use the brass whiz nuts. First things first to get the carriage together. Now you're going to have your guide plates going on top of here. You can put a bolt in here now. It's not going to be in the way. This is to help hold the carriage together as one. Just get these finger tight for now. You can repeat that at the remaining 3 corners. All right, so just getting these 4 bolts in will help hold everything together for you. Now what you can do is on the bottom of the corners, what you'll find right here at the base. If you look in here, you got 2 holes on this side, 1 hole towards the outside here. You're going to put those same bolts, all 3 of them from the bottom up, and put nuts on them. This is my point for the need for the 4x4s. You can see now it's giving me the room to be able to do this. If I wouldn't have used anything to keep this carriage elevated, you can see what a bear up would be to get your hands in here to get these bolts on. One just like that. You do 2 more on the inside. Then you're going to repeat this step 3 more times. All right guys, once we have the previous step done, holding the carriage all together, the next step is going to be to install these black plastic guide plates. So you'll notice, they're meant to capture 50% of the column. They slide up and down, but you might have to flip it one way or the other to get them lined up. So what you do is that slots in there for the cable. You simply set it on top of there like so. Now, the next thing, you're going to find the 3/8 bolts 1.5 inches. They got a small shoulder on them, okay? These are what's going to go through the plastic guide plates. Any bolt that's going through a guide plate like that must have a washer on it. You're going to find these washers in the bolt bag as well. Put the washer on the bolt, drop it through. You're going to do this a total of 5 times at each corner. Now, as you're doing this, the carriage is still loose. You're going to have to shift it around to make sure everything lines up to get your bolts to go in. Might get hung up from time to time. Once you get all 5 in, you can reach under, put the nuts on the bottom side of those. And once you get this done, and you do the other 3 corners totally in 4, you can go ahead and tighten all these bolts up. The first step, the shorter ones we put in, and all of these. You can tighten these up good and tight. You're going to repeat this step 3 more times. I sped up and did the other 3 real quick. That's what they look like. All right guys, after you get the carriage completely tight with all your 3/8 bolts, you're going to grab the remaining 5/8 lock nuts, there'll be 5 of them, and 5 of the thick 5/8 stainless washers. These are what's going to be anchoring all of your upper cables. And again, your long stud is going up. So what you can do, start at one corner, does not matter what corner you start in. you simply take your cable, mind you, straight up from the I-beam. There's two cables here, one coming out of the I-beam, the other one coming out of the cradle tube. Put the washer on, put the nut on, just get it started for now. Once you do that, grab the other cable, put it up through the other vacant hole. Washer. Nut. You can come over here to the other side and do the exact same thing. You will notice on all these studs, they are pressed to fit a 9/16 end wrench on here to hold the stud while you're tightening that lock nut down. Then you go to your last and final one. The winch cable right here. Bring that up. There are two holes here. You want to make sure it's going straight up from the I-beam and the closest one to the column. All right. Once that's done, we're going to level this carriage later on, so you only have to have these finger tight for now, and we'll move right on to the winch box. What you're going to find outside of the winch box, you're going to find a 1/2-inch flange bolt that looks like this. This is full thread. There's going to be two of these and also a 1/2-inch whiz nut. So what we have on the back of our winch box is the holes to mount it. The upper one is a keyhole. So what you can do is take your bolt through. The winch boxes are heavy, that way you can hook it on a bolt. Don't have to try to stand there and hold it while getting a bolt in. So I just get that nut on there like so, get it started, leave the nut backed off so you can set the box on there. Once you get that in there like that, you can remove the cover off of the winch box. You will find in the inside of this winch box where the set screws are to anchor the cable, there is a Allen wrench that we include in the bag to tighten those down. You can see the keyhole in the back of it. What you do is take that winch box, set it on like so. At this point, you can grab the second bolt. Now these bolts you can put through from the box, from the back side, either way, whatever floats your boat. This one you get go gadget fingers, get the nut up in there. These you will be using a 3/4 wrench or socket. Make sure you get these good and tight. The next step, what we're going to do, we're going to mount the cable. Like I said, you will have a 3/16 Allen wrench included. Today, we're going to be using an impact. Fish it through your ladder. As you're bringing the cable up, one thing to pay attention to. Make sure your cable is not hitting anything. Make sure on the right side of the diagonal brace. You have to go up through the bottom of the box here. Okay? Up through the bottom of the box, below that white roller. Like so. Now what I like to do is turn the box. Right here is where your cable anchors. You're going to find two stainless steel set screws in there. I like to turn that so it's facing. Once you have the cable up here with enough slack, what you're going to do here is you'll find a hole on the side of the drum here. You're going to fish that cable through like so. Pull that cable down, and then you're going to find your set screws right there. Put your cable through there like so. You want to get a little bit of cable hanging out below the steel block. Keep the cable from going past the outside of this disc. Take your Allen wrench, snug them down. Get those good and snug. Once you're at that point, you can grab the cable down here below the winch. Pull out your extra. Okay. Now that brings us onto the wheel. So what we're going to do now is you take the wheel, there's a 3/8 bolt right here at the end with a fender washer. You're going to be reusing that. The only thing on here you're going to be taking off and not reusing is this piece of conduit that protects the threads where the wheel goes on. Take that off, set it aside, and grab your wheel. Bring your wheel up like so. Good practice I have is I set it on the shaft like that. Put one hand in the center of the wheel plate like that. Start spinning in a clockwise direction. And that wheel is going to thread itself right onto the boat leg. Now, once you get to that point, this hub will come all the way in. So the wheel's on there enough to get it started. We can start winding the cable. So what we're going to do, you'll see that drum in there, that spiral cut, it's got grooves in it for the cable. Push it all the way to the one side, make sure you get it in the groove, and then you start pinch spinning the wheel, making sure that that cable is going to stay in that groove. It develops memory, and you want it to go back to that point every time you lift your boat. Hold tension on it on the bottom of the box, with it in the groove, start spinning the wheel. And you can see the wheel is threading on, that's why it's not clicking. Once the cable becomes taut, you can let go of it, and that'll hold it. Now if you keep spinning it, this is where you're going to give the carriage lift off. Once you have enough tension on it right here, you're going to put this bolt in the back end of the center of the wheel that we took out for shipping. Cut a little hole in the sticker, take your 3/8 bolt and fender washer, put it back in here in the center. Now you'll notice when you screw down this bolt all the way, you're going to put your wrench on it, get it good and tight. You're going to notice that this fender washer does not touch the plate, this aluminum plate of the wheel. That is okay, that's supposed to be like that. The way the brake works on this is as you go in the down direction, the wheel backs off away from your clicker sprocket against this washer, disengaging the brake. So it'll let your boat go down, and then when you go clockwise, it screws it against the winch box, creating that gap, locking the brake. Our last and final step for the build, outside of putting the cover back onto the winch box, is going to be your wheel knob. You'll see the plate on the wheel where the knob goes. The last of the hardware that you have left. It's going to be a 3/8 bolt. Grab your wheel knob, put your bolt through. You're going to have two of the 3/8 whiz nuts. Put the first one on backwards. You want to take that down just so it's barely touching the knob. You want to back it off a little bit so it spins freely. You don't want this knob to be locked. You want it to spin freely. This is what it should look like at this point. Grab your other nut. Take it up here right through this. Put the knob on. Now you can see the wheel spins freely. Go ahead and tighten that one right up. And as you can see now, the hoist is operational. The carriage will lift off those blocks. Alright, last and final step of this build. What you're going to want to do, you will grab a tape measure You're going to need that for this part of it to get the carriage level, okay? Your winch cable, that's this one in the front, straight across the winch box. There's only one cable here. You can go ahead and tighten that upper nut down until you got thread above the nylon. That one's good, there's no adjustment there. What you want to do is you want to measure at all four corners. Your goal is to get them all the same, okay? So at the back, the way to raise this corner, you're going to have two cables going up. You're going to tighten the one that's closest to the column right here. This cable is this cable right here, second away from the column is what's going to give you your lift. The more you tighten this one up, the more lift you're going to get here. You're going to leave this one loose for the time being. You're going to do the exact same thing on the other side to bring up that corner. So between this cable, that cable, and the front one, you should be able to get this carriage pretty darn close to the same all the way around. If you're within a ½ an inch, that's plenty acceptable. The closer you can get it, the better it's going to operate, the easier it is on all the components in the lift. Lastly, the cable's closest to the column. That's this guy here, same one on the other side. Once that's done, you're going to just get these taut, okay? These are your X cables. They're in the rear I-beam doing this. They keep it balanced from side to side. You just want to get this taut. If you go too tight, what you will see is it creates extra friction on the pulleys if it's too tight. So when you lower the carriage down empty, you will get the back of the carriage that hangs up. So if you experience that, all you want to do is take this nut, back it off a little bit on each side, and that will free it up and allow it to go down. Thanks for joining today, guys. Have a great day. You're ready to use it.